And we are live. So, welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday it would be. Today we have got the awesome Kamal on the call. Kamal has just finished up about a week or two ago in our program, 1% Blueprint. He's kindly taken 20 minutes out of his day to talk about his experience. From my perspective, he's absolutely smashed it, but I want him to speak himself, and I want you to hear from the man himself. Before we jump off, Kamal, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do, a bit about you?
Absolutely. So I'm a tax director in the professional services industry. Started my job back in practice at the end of last year. And then what takes up most of my time is I'm the father to a lovely 5-year-old girl and husband to my amazing wife.
Awesome. So lots on, busy man, busy job, not dissimilar to lots of the gents that I speak to. Well, look, let's dig right into it because I know you're busy and you've got lots going on. Let's rewind a couple of months into the past. I think you saw a bit of my content on LinkedIn, possibly I think an old colleague of yours, a post about their experience. You decided to reach out, we had a chat, and then obviously we decided to move forward together. What was going on back then? If you rewind then, what was your motivation for having a chat with me or somebody like me?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I saw your content from a few people, but it stood out from 2 people for me. One of whom was a former colleague, as you say, and another one was a client who I just started working with. So I spoke to both of them. They both gave you a ringing endorsement. And then in terms of what was going on with me, I was in a situation where life was good, life was comfortable, because I'd worked very, very hard to achieve a good work-life balance. And I felt like I'd achieved that. But I'd almost felt like I was getting too comfortable. And a lot of the good qualities which I had from my younger days, like a lot of graft, a lot of grit, and really kind of attacking things with a lot of kind of oomph. I felt like I was losing connection with that part of me. And that's really what I wanted to get back at, and not just remain at that sort of comfortable level, but get back to pushing myself hard.
Yeah. And I think that's what we said with you. For you, and this is something that there are some guys who aren't in a great way, pretty overwhelmed. Maybe crisis is too strong a word, but not in a good spot. But then there's other gents like yourself who are like, everything's okay, and it's that sort of conscious knowledge that kind of want to be better. There's no one necessarily burning bridge or something necessarily on fire, but it's this sort of like internal understanding that there's more in here that's untapped. I think a quote I heard a little while ago is like, trapped in a chasm of comfortable complacency. It's like there's nothing horrendous, but equally I know and want to be better. Would you say that's kind of a fair summary?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Because when I was in my younger days, I'd always push myself very hard, which had its benefits and drawbacks. And now, given my family circumstances, I'd stopped pushing myself quite as hard in the work and physical front. But I thought there's got to be somewhere in between the two that's sustainable.
Yeah. And I think it's that want and drive to be your best, but I think here is then not at the compromise of other things. And like you're just saying there, maybe when you were younger, you can kind of go all in and neglect other areas. But the key here as well is, I'm putting words in your mouth here, Kamal, but you've got an amazing relationship, a wonderful daughter. You pushing yourself can't come at the detriment to that either. And it's that dichotomy balance, right? Okay. Well, if that's where you were, let's fast forward to today. It's a bit longer than 2 months actually, but you come through the program, you come through the process. What have been your, I guess, key highlights and successes given where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one for me personally is my energy levels. Because my energy levels are really, really high. And at the moment, I won't go into details on this call, but as you know, Luke, there's some challenges I'm going on outside of work and everything, which are out of my control, which are really putting a drain on my sort of mental headspace. But even then, I'm still managing to show up to work, still managing to do my school pickups, school drop-offs, be there for everybody that I need to. And I think that's testament to your program, because even though it seems like it is a lot of hard work at the start, it's actually driving up and creating more energy and it gives you more of that resilience, which is what I needed. So I'd say that's the biggest takeaway from me. Number 2 is physically. When we first spoke, I said physical wasn't a big issue for me, but I think you quite quickly called BS on that without using those words. But I just saw that's been a big thing for me. I lost 7 kilos throughout the program. I think I've lost 1 more since the program's finished. So it's continuing to go in that sustainable habit. If I contrast that to where I was in my younger days, I would go all in with exercise, go in very hard for a couple of months, but then do nothing for a very long time. Whereas this feels like a much more sustainable program that can continue for a very long time. And then I'd say,
Sorry.
and then I was going to say my final big takeaway is at work. I mean, this is not something we worked on directly, but it's not a coincidence. But the time that I was working with you, my client pipeline just gone through the roof. And I think that's because of the way I'm showing up to meetings, the way I'm showing up with my energy levels.
And I think all those elements you described there are kind of all inextricably linked. And again, this is broad brush, but when we spoke, for you, it was very much initially, it was like, energy wasn't so much a thing, but you mentioned that, but it was this, I want to have my drive and my focus. And it was very much like cerebral we were chatting about. And you're like, yeah, okay, I want to get a bit fitter, but that's definitely not a priority. And I think just what you said there is what you recognized, and you said it a few times during the process, was actually, I hadn't quite realized the impact where I'm at physically, and then pushing that, feeling better about myself, has on everything else. And it's not that's the only thing. That's the whole point. You still need to look at the whole lot in totality. But that does have a big bearing, both for your self-esteem, how you feel, how you show up. And as you know, the program, it's not just about fitness or being physically strong. That's an element, but it goes a big, long way to helping. And then if you marry that up with what we're talking about here, which is the increase in energy, showing up in a conscious, positive way, but then also, like you said, having some pretty shit things happening in life that you have to deal with, you would never choose that, but being in the best state possible to be able to deal and react with that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Fundamentally, absolutely.
And what would you then say, if we say that the key things here is the energy piece, I guess the overarching thing there is the energy, the energy component. Like, what would you say have been the key learnings or like takeaways that you've had having come through the process to get you to the point that we're at today?
Yeah, so I'd say there's quite a few, so but I'll pick on the one or two that come to mind. I'd say the process, I don't think you use this term, Luke, but I think your whole program is trying not to give away your secrets. There's a lot of sort of a lot of it's based around micro wins and micro habits. And I think that's really key because then I've used that same concept to other parts. So like one of the things I want to do is just start reading for pleasure again, which I hadn't done for a while. And I think I've read 3 books in the last 2 weeks because I've just broken it down rather than seeing overwhelmed by this is a big book. I've broken it down into small chapters and think, right, okay, it's do better reading a small piece than reading nothing, basically. And in the same way I did with the exercise with you, it's like better to show up and do something rather than do nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a massive one for me. Probably the one I pick out because I've been able to transplant that to other areas.
And then I think the thing there about, you talked about the exercise and the little wins, the micro wins. I think one thing, you haven't said this today, but I know we've discussed it before, is this, if you can't do that, what else can you do? And it's that, oh, well, this is what I had planned. Well, I can't do that now because life, the universe, whatever's got in the way. And not just going, oh, fuck it. And I'm going, actually, well, there's a host of other things I can do. And yes, you want the drive and ambition to be fair to yourself and push yourself, but it's also having the, I guess, consciousness to be aware that, well, given these circumstances, this is what's possible and this is what I can do. And that doesn't make me a bad person. That's good enough. And I think being able to sort of sit in that space, can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think when I first started on the program, the first couple of calls, I think you were trying to coach me to be kinder to myself a bit and not showing up or not achieving one of the wins as that's it, you write yourself off for the rest of the day or for the rest of the week. And so that's been really good. So, and I think one thing I've really got out of the program is to be honest with yourself. Because I think if you're honest with yourself, you can tell whether you are just giving yourself an easy pass by saying I'm too tired or whether you're genuinely too tired.
Yeah.
And that's something I've become a lot better at. I mean, a good example, I think, to your point, Lee, because it was a couple of weeks ago, there's been obviously a fabulous British summer with a lot of rain. I wanted to hit my steps for the day and I thought, but because it was raining loads, I started giving myself a pass thinking it's raining. But then I kicked in and thought, actually, no, it's my choice to stay dry. So what am I going to do instead? Because I don't want to get too wet. I'm going to put my running shoes. I went out for a long run instead. Got my steps done. And that's that choice I've made.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's about looking at your situation and being honest with what you need to do. And that's an example of an exercise. But in my experience and how we work and how the program works as well, is we look at things in totality. But there'll be countless examples like that. Maybe you're procrastinating at work, or you want to be more present, or whatever else. And there's things that you might want to do, but maybe life and circumstances changes that. It doesn't mean because the one thing you wanted to do can't happen, all bets are off. It's being able to go, well, okay, that can't happen, but what else can I do? And I think sitting in that space and being that mindset, that just makes life easier. Doesn't mean hard things don't happen, but it just means you're not just knocked over at the first breath of wind. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it does. And your point there is bang on around procrastination at work. So I know that was something I spoke to you about as well. But by focusing on sort of the physical and the other stuff and the nutrition, I'm finding that actually that has its knock-on effects to the procrastination at work, because then you're showing up to work having already ticked off a couple of wins, and then you're showing up and thinking, right, okay, absolutely, bang, I'm going to do it. And you're exposing yourself through the cold showers to discomfort. I mean, like 3-4 months later, I still dread going into the shower in the morning, but I still do it, and then that's like another win for the day.
But it's like that's like a mental muscle that you can, Well, what does getting up and doing some exercise when you told yourself you're going to do it do for you? Well, there's the physiological benefit. You've done some exercise, there's the endorphins, you feel good. But then on a more self-esteem sort of deeper level, you've committed to doing something and you've done it. And it's like, well done me. And I haven't just cried off and, I was a bit tired and I felt a bit knackered and it was raining, but I got up and did it anyway. Well, then, there's that report I've got to write and the client's a bit of a, but right, I'm just going to do it. So it's the same internal mechanisms, but if you've got elements like that scattered through your life where you're showing up and doing the things that you say you need to do, and you're doing that on repeat most of the time, well, then that plays out everywhere else. And or the reverse is like, I got that, I did a report, tonight, or tomorrow I don't want to get up and do that workout. Well, I did that, come on. And you see what I mean? So it's all sort of interconnects.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like then you're creating additional time for yourself as well. So you start to think about what's possible rather than making excuses. You think, actually, all this is possible. I can do all this. Plus, I can have that time off just to relax and recharge the batteries as well. And so it's all, going to say, all links and layers on one another.
What would you say then, if there was one thing you could point to, would be the key takeaway from the whole process? And I know there's lots that we're talking about, but if you could sort of point to one thing, what would you say the big thing is that you've taken from the process overall?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely the bias towards action, because I'm quite good at sitting around, and I always have been good at thinking about stuff, but then less so of actually just getting up and then doing the task. Because it's easy to sit down and write, and I find it quite easy to sit down and write and make lists and plans. But then executing on those plans is often where I used to sometimes fall down. But I think with your program, because it was very much around the micro goals, and I think the real magic of your program, it hit me during week 3 or 4, is when you start to see all the little things layer on top of each other. So you have the nutrition layers on the exercise, layers on the mindset. And so having that bias towards action sets that kind of positive wheel in motion, and you get all the good stuff coming out of you, and then it just all like overflowing with it.
That phrase, bias towards action, I'm going to steal that and use it. I really like it. I think it really encapsulates very nicely. I think that's it. And because I think, again, if you're feeling a bit, like we said at the start, complacency, sense of inertia, not doing much, and you can make all the plans you want and you can do all the sort of things with that, but then at some point the rubber has to hit the road and you have to go, well, let's just get our fucking hands dirty and do something about whatever it is. And I think that speaks to like the process. Yeah, there's habits and micro goals, behaviors, mindset, exercise, nutrition. There's all these things that happen. But it's not also about doing them perfectly like a robot. Like things will go wrong because that's life. But then again, that's not all. It's all gone wrong, I'm going to stop. It's that, well, no, what do we need to do? Oh, let's understand that, and then let's take some action. So it's like it's not just navel gazing. You need to understand where you're at, and sometimes uncover some stuff you can't see. But once you've done that, it's like, what are we going to do about it? And that's the bit I think is really, really important. I think that breeds that forward center of mass, positive action. That I think feels good, for men and women, for all of us. I think a sense of inertia and feeling like you haven't quite got the level of control you want. That's generally, I would say, like a disempowering state to be. Being more agentic is, I believe, a better place to operate from.
Absolutely. And just building on that, Luke, with the bias towards action is also sorry, like my say, just developing on the sort of my takeaways as thoughts are flowing, is bias towards action, but also not having to see things in an all or nothing mindset. So basically, because I like writing, and as we discussed, I was kind of blocking myself and actually not just writing, because I felt like unless I wrote down an entire novel in one sitting, I was somehow not succeeding. But actually, no, it's better to show up and write 3 pages than write nothing, because at least you got something done, something to build on, and that is, it's starting to develop that sort of self-image, and that's and actually saying, just if you write 3 pages every day for 3 months, you've probably written quite a shed load then.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's better than just waiting to start 3 months later when you've written nothing.
Or waiting for the opportune moment when everything's quiet and calm and the stars are aligned, you're gonna write it perfectly. It's like, no, like write your first paragraph. It's just do the thing. I think that's it. And that's often easier said than done, because again, at the start of a process, like yourself and guys that I work with, if your head's not in a good spot, you're almost aware that you need to do things, but like, how can you make it work? Because there's lots of other things that aren't serving you. So that's why I think putting things together in a holistic way, but ultimately, like you're saying there, not letting perfect be the enemy of good and just getting on with things, I think ultimately it sets you free, because it's like, more often than not, the narratives that we spin around why you can't do things, 9 times out of 10, they're probably not the reality, but it's been able to be more conscious and see that, and then take the steps to move forward, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's better to just take 1 step than take 0 steps.
Yeah, exactly. I want to take 15 steps. Well, why don't you take 1? Okay, metaphorically, that's it.
Yeah. Because case in point, Luke, I've run quite a few half marathons, but they're all sort of 10 years ago. And so I can't run a half marathon like I used to, but what I can do is go out and run 3 or 4 miles, and then I'll build up back up to half marathon pretty quickly. So that's exactly it.
Yeah, that's it. So I want to run a half marathon. I want to start running. Well, I can't do that now. Well, so I can't run. Well, no.
Yeah.
Or it could even be a 5K. Yeah, I used to be able to run a 5K in 20 minutes. I can't now. Well, okay, why don't you run it in half an hour and then run it in 5 minutes and so on? It's applying that same thinking, but across the board. But again, if you get a little win in one area, one domain, be that physically, you put in your mouth, be that up here, well, then that's like a little chink to go, well, oh, that worked there. So maybe if I just apply that there, maybe if I just apply that there, then that's where it, I believe, starts to become more holistic. And it's like, well, then ultimately, rather than having that sense of inertia and feeling like, you're not moving forward, you can. And I think our ego wants us to take the 10 steps and do the huge thing, but actually doing the little thing 5 times in a row, you've probably got further than you would have done in the first place,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's been really helpful and insightful, Kamal. Thank you. And I think, your insights into A, where you've got to, but B, like how you've got there is really, really helpful. I've got a lot out of it. Let's say someone's watching this and maybe like yourself, sort of thinking, everything's okay, and there's that but there. There's like, there's that feeling like I want to be better, but I can't quite work it out. Ultimately, maybe they're considering speaking to someone, but they're on the fence. What would you say to someone that's kind of on the fence with potentially engaging with a process like this?
Yes, if you've got that kind of but in you, I think you owe it to yourself really to explore what's behind that but. Get curious, what's that kind of internal urge there? And I'd say that the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. So if you invest in yourself and just think that the sky's the limit. I mean, from an 8-week program, I lost 7K, high energy levels, doing better at work, just generally all around more present with people around me. And that's from 8 weeks. So I'm just thinking, what can happen in 52 weeks?
Exactly.
And that all came from me exploring that urge and that what was that but in me. And that's really what you helped me sort of uncover. And it wasn't like you said to me, Kamal, here's what you need to do. You just sort of gave me the foundations. And then I sort of explored it, and you sort of guided me along the way, and it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
Well, thank you. I think that's a pretty good endorsement. I mean, as a coach, biased, I believe investing in yourself is the best thing you can do, but I'm going to say that. But as you always, I said to yourself and others, I'm a coach. I spend money on myself investing in coaching because I believe it. And like, who am I to say that I'm the finished article to work and help others? Very much not. And so I believe in that. But I think you articulated that really, really well, because I think also, some of the guys that I might work with, that never had any personal coaching, they wouldn't think twice about a golf coach or a business coach, whatever else. But then when it comes to you, there's almost this sort of wrinkle. Oh well, no, I can do it. But it's the same thing. And like you said, the net result is where you are, and why you are where you are today. And so, I love working with you, and I've said this to you before, Kamal, offline anyway. Because ultimately, yeah, there's a plan and a path and a process, but you're the one who has to do the work and make it happen, and you have. And the results speak for themselves, and it's why we are. So I've A, loved working with you, but B, it's been a pleasure to see you get where you are, and I know that you'll be in an even better place in 52 weeks, like guaranteed for sure.
Thanks, Luke. It's been a pleasure with myself.
Yeah. So thank you for your time, Kamal. I hope anyone watching has got a lot out of it. I certainly have. If anyone who's watching is interested in potentially having a chat, find out a bit more about what I do, what the process is like, just drop me a note in the comments or send me a DM. On that note, Kamal, absolute pleasure. Thank you. You're a legend. And everyone else, have a fantastic week. Cheers. See you later.